In the long and storied history of bogusness, there have been few days on which the bogus could be found in such depth and breadth, in such quantity and quality, as we can find looking back upon the fateful events of May 1st, 2003, a date which will live in Bogaucity. In our number one story tonight, forget for a moment the mission accomplished banner, which actually was not bogus in a way, because our troops really did accomplish what they were sent to do, remove Saddam Hussein and make sure Iraq did not pose a threat. It only turned out to be bogus when Mr. Bush decided that mission was not mission accomplished enough. We found out in dribs and drabs that virtually everything about that day was bogus, even the initial explanations for and denials of their bogaucity and bogusness and bogassitude. The landing was bogus. The Navy turned around the carrier Abraham Lincoln beforehand, ensuring we would not have to notice exotic San Diego in the background. The plane was bogus. Turned out the ship was close enough to shore for the president to have used a safer and cheaper helicopter instead. The ship was bogus. It should have been docked, but was kept at sea for hours, extending the sailor's 10-month tour so that the president could get a nap on board. The explanations for the banner were the height of bogusness, the White House actually blaming it on the sailors. The tactic of hiding behind the military, a sign of bogus things yet to bogus come. Let's get some additional bogus elements of that day from Rachel Maddow, whose program airs on Air America Radio every weeknight. Rachel, thanks as always for your time.
Hi, Keith. Thanks for having me.
I said on this network 4 years ago today, don't you think him in a flight suit's going to remind people about that Air National Guard controversy? And I was told, no way, this is his day, no way. 4 years later, what stands out to you as the most bogus thing about that day?
I think the most bogus thing about that day was the screw the troops, I need the photo op stuff, which is the stuff that you just went through, the turning around the aircraft carrier. You can see there that they've got them dressed up in color-coordinated outfits that match the backdrop as best as they thought fit. The having him land there in the plane, even though his helicopter could have reached it, all of this stuff that came to symbolize the larger problems of the Bush administration and this war, which is using the troops, using the military, dressing them up to make Bush look as good as possible. That was the overall metaphor of the day, and that's what I think stuck with us.
Walk us through your choices for that day's tragically bogus and comically bogus aspects.
Comically bogus has to be the cod piece. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to talk about that on this program, but
why not? We talked about it positively about him 4 years ago, everybody on this network and every other network.
Yeah, you know, I'm struck by how embarrassing it is for people to have been exclaiming about his little weapon of mass destruction there. I mean, who knows what he brought with him that day in his pants, but the codpiece flight suit cinched up crotch thing, you can't really top that in terms of pure action figure joy for our most comic, I guess, takeaway message from that day. In terms of the tragic takeaway message, I actually think the fact that at the time, the fact that we really fell for it. I mean, it was so transparent what he was doing. It was so transparent as kind of an evil photo op in terms of what he was trying to make happen. We knew that so much of the photo op itself was bogus that day. But when you look back at the transcripts of the way it was discussed that day, I mean, even Chris Matthews coming on your show that day and talking about him being a hero and how much women love a hero and women love the war now because he looks so great. We knew it was bogus at the time, but still the cheerleading that went along with it was disgusting. I mean, Chris on his own show booked Ann Coulter to be the person to respond to that speech, and sure enough, her speech was all about her analysis that day was all about how hot he looked. That is the tragic part of it, I think, that was actually really part of the media cheerleading about the Bush administration's PR.
Yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder can really make you do stupid things. There was something creepy about that attempt to fetishize the president there. The favorite analogy was they're having him dress up and play Top Gun, but I thought then, and would you agree now, that the message really was he was Bill Pullman from Independence Day. He was the pilot president saving us from intergalactic invasion. That was the magnitude was not just, oh, he's shot down a couple of invaders, but that these were aliens who were come to destroy the planet.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I also think, though, that you might find a good analogy in, like, Sanjaya on American Idol, in the sense that he really was doing his best, but the usefulness of this occasion, the usefulness of this photo op for us as a nation is in how bad it was. We don't remember this because of anything he said that day. We don't remember this because of what the bravery of those troops who he was supposedly saluting on that aircraft carrier. We remember this as a disaster. This is the first disaster spectacle of the war, the first of many to come over the subsequent 4 years. I mean, we've had 3,212 troops die since that day, and it's been disaster after disaster after disaster. That was the first one where we really knew that what we were watching, I think, was awful, even if the media that day was cheering along with it.
First note of the alarm clock sounding in many people's heads,
Yeah.
and I think my own included. Rachel Maddow, host of The Rachel Maddow Show on Air America, of course. Great, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Keith.
That is Countdown to this, the 1,462nd day since the declaration of mission accomplished in Iraq. 4 years. From Los Angeles, I'm Keith Obermann. Good night, and good luck.